I know I may be the only person to say this, but I think Zoolander 2 is better than the first Zoolander. Don't get me wrong, I really like the first film, but there's just something about the second film, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I think it might just be that the narrative, for me, is slightly more interesting. Or at least the development of it. But I think it's slightly better, but I love them both. The sequel was released in 2016, directed by the fabulous Ben Stiller, written by Justin Theroux and Nicholas Stoller, and stars, of course, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson, alongside Penelope Cruz and Will Ferrell. I have to say, Stiller, Wilson, and Ferrell are three of my favourite comedy actors. So this, for me, is very much a bit of a dream team. And that's one of the reasons why I just really like the Zoolander films in general. And I'll read the description from IMDb because it doesn't spoil anything, and it's actually a little bit suspenseful. So this says, Derek and Hansel are lured into modelling again in Rome, where they find themselves the target of a sinister conspiracy. What is that conspiracy? I'm not going to tell you, but it's been a long time. Neither of them have modelled in a long time, and neither of them have really seen each other. They're living very different lives from one another, and Valentina, this model, decides to bring them back together, and there's a conspiracy that has them at basically the heart of it. And it's a bit of a mystery, a little bit of adventure, definitely a comedy. The narrative, I'll be honest, even though I really like the narrative, I think the reason it works is because of the characters of Derek and Hansel, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson. I love the characters. I love the development of the characters, particularly from the first film and where they ended up at the beginning of the second film. I love the acting styles. I think Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller fit these characters so perfectly, and I honestly think that they make this really, really interesting. Also, Blue Steel, absolutely love it. So, while I say the narrative is something that I really like about this, I think it's more appealing to me than the narrative of the first film. But were the characters quite dull, the narrative on its own wouldn't hold itself, and I get that. I think maybe that's one of the reasons why it's not so well received compared to the first film. But again, I still prefer it, so I'm not really sure why it's not that well received. To put it into perspective, the first film has 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb, the second has 4.7. Not that great, but for me, it's got all of the hallmarks of a good film. The narrative, as I said, is interesting, it's well developed, the characters are fantastic. I love their development in this particularly, but also their development from the first film. On-screen chemistry is fantastic, as we would expect. Costumes are brilliant. Locations, sets, no complaints whatsoever. Some beautiful outdoor scenery. The style of comedy is sometimes my style and sometimes not so much. But in a way, that means it's probably going to appeal to a wider audience, because if you are not a fan of my kind of comedy favourites, then you're probably going to like the other aspect of it. It's funny, it's cheeky, it's cheesy. As a sequel, I think it's absolutely brilliant. If you've seen the first film and enjoyed it, definitely watch this. I promise you will like it. If you've seen the first film and didn't like it, it's unlikely that you'd like this film. But because I prefer it, I am going to say give it a go anyway. You might actually find that the style is more to your taste. There are a lot of things about this that I really enjoyed. I think it's very well done, very well directed, very well produced. I can't find anything about it that is that bad, and that would give it such a low rating. Personally, Zoolander 2 is a lot better than the first Zoolander.